Hey gang, it's Rob with Japanime Games. Today we're going to be learning how to play Dynamite Nurse. Dynamite Nurse is a deck building card game made by Japanime Games and ArcLight in Japan. And we are going to be releasing at the end of August, so I figured I'd give you a little bit of how to play for either then in the future or now to get excited about. Dynamite Nurse, diving in. I'll see you down there, guys. Like I said, Dynamite Nurse is a deck building card game. It's got a little bit of a screw your buddy element to it, which I think makes it kind of unique. You're going to want to set your board up as you see in the rulebook. I've already done so to save you guys some time. You're going to want to start out with 5 consultation cards, 3 basic treatment cards, and a unique nurse card. The nice part about this game is there's a little red star on every single one, as you can see up on the screen. Note the little red star. That means it's not a card that goes here, it's a card that starts in your deck. And everybody gets the same amount and everyone starts on the same playing field. The goal of this game is to heal the patients that arrive via the ambulance zone and kill the patients of your opponents that arrive on the ambulance zone. So kind of a chilling future depiction of healthcare. To begin, you're going to draw 4 cards and we'll begin our turn. Turns are split into 4 phases. Main phase, transportation phase, admission phase, and cleanup phase. Main phase, you play as many cards as you wish. As you can see, my hand is 4 consultations. Wonder how I got so lucky. Maybe I cheated. So, my 4 consultations, I can then use them to purchase anything from the marketplace here that costs 4. So, I know that patients are going to start rolling off this deck pile because adventurers are getting injured in dungeons, and so I need to heal them. So I'm going to pick up a card that'll help me treat them. So check out Major Surgery. When Major Surgery pops up on the screen there, you see that it costs 4, and I have 4 to play. It gives you a bonus healing of 3, and it has a little flavor text. It says the good news is we invented anesthesia. The bad news is that there's a slight risk of turning into a toad. Good news is I've operated on a toad. So that kind of breaks the convention of the good news, bad news joke format, but I suppose we'll let it slide. Now, if you've never played a deck building card game before, this might confuse you. I've taken the card I've purchased and rather putting it in my hand, I've put it in my discard pile. That's fine. I know what I'm doing. Because the way that a deck building card game works is you build your deck as you play. At some point, I'm going to run out of cards in this pile, and when I do, I am going to have to shuffle up the contents of my discard pile, and that will become my new deck. Thus, building my deck. It's very exciting. It's very, blame Dominion. I don't know. Don't talk to me about it. So anyway, I'm going to draw 4 more cards because... Oh wait, I'm not going to do that yet because I skipped 2 phases. Anyway, transportation phase. Transport 1 patient and place a duty marker on them. So to transport a patient, I place it right there. Boom, my pile is empty so I don't have to do anything beyond that. As you can see, it is a poisoned patient. A poisoned patient is worth 2 victory points. Or requires 4 healing to heal, and it looks like it's being bit by a mimic and getting poisoned. I didn't know mimics poisoned, but maybe it's different in Japan. Maybe Japan has different D&D. Okay, so pops down onto the transportation section, and I have to assign a duty marker. Basically, I place a duty marker on it. I say to myself, you know what? I'm going to have a really good turn for healing next turn. I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be able to heal that. I'm going to pop a duty marker on there right there. We go to the admission phases. So I can admit as many of your charges as I wish to my hospital. So if you look right here, I have 4 slots for admitted patients. If I go beyond this 4, they start going into my death pile. And so that's not great. Essentially, the graveyard's here, and I will gain death marks, which are worth negative victory points. And when the game ends, it'll be really bad if I've killed a lot of people. Won't look good for my hospital. My premiums are going to go up in terms of how much I pay in malpractice insurance. So, I've assigned my duty marker. It's right there. Bing, bang, boom. Turn ends. I draw 4 cards, which is what I jumped the gun on earlier. And I pass. The turn would go around. Let's say we're playing with a bunch of patients. They buy cards. A patient shows up here, pushes mine over. See, I haven't admitted him yet because maybe I don't want to put him here yet because I don't know how many duty markers people are going to assign on me. Probably in a real game I would just admit him because I can probably just heal him. Another turn would go. This would go right here. Duty markers would be assigned by other players. In the early game, players are probably going to assign their own color to the duty marker. But I might, if my opponent has duty markers left, assign a patient to them. That's the screw your buddy element. Essentially, it would go around. All of these patients are getting added. Essentially, patients start dying if they fill up this section. And then finally it would get around to my turn. I would play again. I would probably definitely admit this patient. And let's say everyone was just downright awful to me. And I'm just getting ultimately screwed. So I now have all these duty markers assigned to me. I'm in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to admit as many patients as I can, because I don't want these to die on the next round through. As you can see, I didn't have enough slots to admit all of them. So it's very, very difficult that unless I heal these, this patient could end up in the graveyard. So essentially now, once these patients are here, I can try to treat them. I don't think this would happen that often, that you would get all 4 within your first turn, but we're just acting like everyone hates me at the table. So, play as many cards as I wish. I'm going to start with the specialty nurse that I have. You can see her up on the screen. She causes me to draw a card. That means now that I have all 3 of my simple surgeries available to me in my deck. Those 3 simple surgeries are going to allow me to target the wounded patient. You can see the wounded patient up on the screen. Target her, remove the duty marker, and place her in my acquired patients pile. Because essentially what happens is I was able to cure her because I had enough healing equal to her damage. However, if I was unable to heal these people, what would happen to them as they were moved from the 2 beds I have here to basically sleeping on the floor of the hospital room, they would flip over into their critical condition. As you can see, in their critical condition, they are much more difficult to heal. It's much more difficult. So if you see the back of the card right there, the critical condition, it becomes much more difficult. And basically, we would play back and forth, essentially trying to assign negative victory points, while at the same time, by having a person become overwhelmed and have their patients die, while at the same time, we acquire patients and heal them. That's our goal. So you acquire death marks, like say these patients were to just die because I'm not a very Dynamite Nurse. Or I am a Dynamite Nurse because the player who has the deaths acquires the Dynamite Nurse. So I suppose, yes, I am the Dynamite Nurse. I would acquire these death marks, and these death marks basically would give me negative victory points. And on the back of the little kill mark thing, there's a list of the negative victory points. I don't know if I have that art asset, though, to show you. Just know that the victory points are outlined on the back of the card. So that's basically all the phases of Dynamite Nurse. Like I said, it's really interesting to me because it's a much simpler deck building card game in a way. If I were to compare it to say like Tanto Quarry or something like that, has much less of this zone. But what I realized when I was reading the rules, because initially that kind of caught me off guard, I was confused, is that this is a much, much more interactive game. This is not a game you play by yourself. This is not a combo game. You're not essentially, if anyone here's a fan of Magic, it's not a storm deck where you're, sometimes when you're playing a deck building card game, you feel like you're just going off by yourself and that the other players are simply there to have someone to compare your score against. You're just goldfishing is the idea. Whereas here, there's much less interaction on this front, but much more interaction against the other players. So I think that's a really kind of exciting element. All the cards kind of have a really dark, kind of sardonic sense of humor to them, because we're all just terrible doctors in the storyline of the game. So I actually really, really recommend it because I just think it's one of those things where, it's different. It's unique. It's cool. I really like it. Check it out, guys. Just so you guys know, to clear up the game ending, the game ends when the pile of kill marks runs out or the dungeon runs out of patient cards. And since basically patient cards added every single turn and kill marks can rack up pretty quickly, that can happen pretty fast. So When you're at the end, you calculate victory points. Essentially, you get victory points from the patient cards that you've acquired, like I talked about. You get +1 for every patient currently in your hospital. Remember, you have 2 beds, 2 empty slots. And the empty slots, basically, if you stay there, you go into critical condition, just to clear that up. And you get victory cards from play cards and nurse cards you own, so basically cards in your deck that have a victory point cost associated with them. And you get negative victory points based on the amount of kill marks you have. The player with the most victory points is the winner, and if multiple players are tied for first place, the player with the least kill marks is the winner. So check it out, guys. Dynamite Nurse, end of August. You should be able to pick it up at Gen Con if you're going to be going. And if you already backed it, you'll have it by then. So really cool stuff. Don't quote me on that. You know, sometimes things get delayed, but everything should be pretty good. It seems like it's going to be pretty good. Anyway, guys, that was Dynamite Nurse, deck building card game. Much more of a screw your buddies element to it. Much kind of simpler in terms of the solo gameplay, but more complicated in terms of the group gameplay. You know, assigning kill marks. You know, you can overwhelm a buddy, knock him out of the game if he's the guy who's always winning, stuff like that. But then that could backfire because he could just heal them, and if he builds his deck well enough, or if he gets lucky enough. So really cool stuff. All right, guys, I'll see you for the next one. That was Dynamite Nurse. Check it out, end of August at JapanimeGames.com. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.